The crystalline towers of Elysium Station glittered against the backdrop of stars as Ambassador Vrel Noor raised her glass. To 5 centuries of galactic peace under the Concordat, the assembled dignitaries, representing 19 spacefaring species, echoed her toast. Elaborate robes shimmered, tentacles waved, and photosynthetic appendages pulsed with approval. This was the crowning achievement of their civilization. 500 years without interspecies warfare. Only High Counselor Kavdrel seemed troubled, his 4 eyes blinking asynchronously as he approached Vrel. An impressive milestone, he conceded, voice pitched low beneath the celebratory din. Though I'm concerned about the Scourge reports from the Cygnus arm, Vrel's smile faltered. Surely, those are just transit disruptions. 15 systems have gone silent in the past orbital cycle. That's not disruption. That's systematic erasure. Before Vrel could respond, the station's emergency klaxons blared. The celebration froze, glasses suspended mid-toast, conversations halted mid-word. "Attention all personnel," announced the station's AI. "Unknown vessels approaching. Trajectory indicates zenith quadrant origin." The holographic display at the center of the hall flickered to life, showing a swarm of angular ships with pulsing red cores, hundreds of them, thousands. "The Scourge," whispered Kavdrel. "They've reached the core systems." Ambassador Ixel of the Mithridian Collective studied the display, her feathered crest flattening in recognition. "No, these aren't Scourge vessels. This is a design we've never encountered." The diplomatic frequency crackled. A harsh, unfamiliar voice filled the room. "This is Captain Mariska Dravek of the Earth Defense Force. We've tracked a hostile fleet to this location. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately." Stunned silence followed. "Earth?" Vrel finally managed. "There is no such world in the Concordat Registry." Another voice cut in, deeper and commanding. "Admiral Osei Kadar, EDF Flagship Dauntless. We have engaged the enemy. Shields at maximum. All civilian vessels clear the area." The holographic display expanded to show the battle unfolding beyond the station. The unknown ships, apparently from this Earth, were engaging the Scourge vessels with devastating efficiency. Energy weapons sliced through the alien armada, while the Earth ships absorbed punishment that would have shattered Concordat vessels. "Impossible," breathed Ixil. "Look at their technology. The power readings are off the scale." High Counselor Kavdrel turned to the assembled dignitaries, his voice grave. "We're witnessing first contact with a previously unknown species, while they defend us from an enemy we couldn't detect until it was too late." The station shuddered as a stray energy blast grazed its shields. "Station integrity at 70%, reported the AI. "Recommend immediate evacuation." Ambassador Vrel gripped the railing as the battle raged. Where did they come from? How could an entire spacefaring civilization exist without our knowledge? From a darkened corner, Archivist Pazen approached, his ancient exoskeleton whirring. There were rumors, legends from the early expansion era, a quarantine system, a species deemed too volatile for contact. "You mean we knew about them?" demanded Vrel. "Not knew. Chose to forget." Pazen's voice was somber. "The founders sealed the records. Apparently they feared these humans." On the display, a massive Earth vessel moved between the station and an incoming Scourge bombardment, taking the hit directly. Its shields flared but held. "If they're so dangerous," Ixil asked, watching the battle with newfound awe, "why are they risking their lives to protect us?" No one had an answer as the celebration hall, moments ago filled with self-congratulation, now stood silent in witness to their salvation by strangers. Admiral Osei Kadar watched the alien station through the viewport of the EDF Dauntless. The fore structure was magnificent, a delicate latticework of impossible architecture and entirely unprepared for war. "Status report," he demanded, eyes never leaving the battle. Lieutenant Razik worked her console with practiced efficiency. Scourge forces in disarray, but still numerous. The alien station's shields won't hold against another direct hit. And our fleet? Performing admirably. The Hyperion Squadron reports minor casualties. Valkyrie Wing has eliminated 37 enemy vessels. Kadar nodded grimly. When Earth's long-range sensors had detected the Scourge Armada heading toward a populated region, they'd scrambled every available ship. After fighting these demons for 15 years, humanity knew exactly what was at stake. "Sir," Razik said, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien station. They're requesting permission to board." Kadar raised an eyebrow. "In the middle of a battle? They say they're sending a diplomatic delegation." "Diplomats." Kadar almost laughed. "Fine. Direct them to Hangar Bay 3. Inform Captain Laszlo to receive them." He paused. "And Lieutenant, tell him no weapons but full biohazard protocols." "We don't know what we're dealing with." Captain Mariska Dravek banked her fighter sharply, narrowly avoiding the acid-green beam from the pursuing Scourge vessel. The EDF Harrier-class fighter responded instantly to her neural interface, performing maneuvers that would liquefy an unaugmented human's organs. "Phoenix Squadron, execute Formation Delta," she ordered. "Concentrate fire on their propulsion systems." 6. Fighters fell into formation behind her, their targeting systems linking with hers. As one, they released a barrage of quantum torpedoes. The Scourge vessel's rear sections erupted in silent, devastating explosions. "Confirmed kill," reported her wingman, Lieutenant HFY. "But we've got more incoming at Vector 317. Dravek checked her tactical display. 3 Scourge hunter-killers were heading straight for the alien station. "Phoenix Squadron, intercept course. Those civilians are priority alpha." As they accelerated toward the new threat, Dravek couldn't help but wonder about these aliens. Earth had maintained its isolation for centuries, ever since the disastrous first contact with the beings they now knew as the Scourge. That encounter had cost humanity the entire Mars colony. 2 million lives snuffed out in a day. Since then, Earth had built its military in secret, developing technologies specifically to combat the Scourge threat. They'd reclaimed their solar system and pushed outward, establishing defensive perimeters in neighboring stars. And now this, an entire galactic civilization, apparently oblivious to the predators at their door. "Phoenix Leader," HFY's voice broke through her thoughts. "Station's sending transport shuttles into the battle zone. They're evacuating." Directly into a combat theater? Are they insane? Dravek banked her fighter toward the nearest shuttle. "Phoenix Squadron, escort pattern. Don't let anything near those transports." In Hangar Bay, 3 of the Dauntless, Captain Laszlo Krum, stood at rigid attention as the alien shuttle settled onto the deck. His security team maintained a respectful distance as ordered, though he noted their fingers stayed close to sidearms. The shuttle's door irised open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. 4 figures emerged, each distinctly non-human. Laszlo had studied xenobiology, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The tallest alien stepped forward. She, at least Laszlo's translator implant interpreted the voice as female, wore elaborate robes that seemed to shift color with each movement. "I am Ambassador Vrel Noor of the Galactic Concordat. On behalf of our 19-member species, I thank you for your intervention." Laszlo bowed slightly. "Captain Laszlo Krum, Earth Defense Force. Admiral Kadar will meet with you shortly. In the meantime, we've prepared quarters for your delegation." The smallest alien, encased in what appeared to be a mechanical exoskeleton, moved forward. "You've encountered the Scourge before." It wasn't a question. "We have," Laszlo confirmed grimly. "They attacked one of our colonies 17 years ago. We've been at war ever since." The 4 aliens exchanged glances laden with meaning Laszlo couldn't decipher. 17 years, repeated Ambassador Vrel. "And you've survived?" The translator conveyed her astonishment clearly. "Not just survived," Laszlo corrected. "We've pushed them back. This is the first time they've changed course." heading for your territories instead of continuing to probe ours. The third alien, covered in iridescent feathers, spoke. You tracked them here, through uncharted space? We followed them through 13 star systems to reach you. The hangar shuddered as the Dauntless absorbed another hit. Perhaps, suggested Ambassador Vrel, we should continue this conversation somewhere more secure, and if possible, I'd like to establish communication with our station. There are over 10,000 civilians still aboard. Laszlo nodded. Follow me, and don't worry about your people. Captain Dravek is the best pilot in the fleet. She'll keep them safe. The Scourge had a name for humanity. In their hive consciousness, transmitted through quantum entanglement across their vast armada, they called humans the Unbroken. Other species had fallen to the Scourge's advanced weaponry and genetic assimilation techniques. Only humanity had met their attacks with equal ferocity and surprising adaptability. The Hive commander directing the assault on the Concordat station hadn't expected to encounter humans here, so far from their territory. This changed everything. New directives pulsed through the collective. Disengage from the station, concentrate on the human vessels, retreat if losses exceed 40%. Humans weren't just enemies to the Scourge. They were existential threats. Ambassador Vrel Noor found herself in a war room unlike anything in Concordat experience. Holographic displays showed battle formations updating in real time, while human officers moved with disciplined precision. At the center stood Admiral Kadar, his dark skin contrasting with his white uniform, scars visible on his exposed hands and face. The Scourge are altering their tactics, he explained to the alien delegation. They're disengaging from your station and focusing on our fleet. Why? Asked Ixel, her feathers rustling with confusion. Because they fear us, answered Archivist Bzen from within his exoskeleton. All eyes turned to him. I've accessed sealed records during our transit. When the Concordat was still young, our exploration vessels encountered Earth. Initial scans showed a primitive species just discovering atomic energy. But there was something else. A propensity for warfare unlike anything we'd documented. High Counselor Kovdrell's 4 eyes narrowed. The quarantine protocol. I thought that was just bureaucratic legend. Very real, confirmed Pizan. The founders decided this species was too dangerous to contact. A stellar blockade was established. Automated systems designed to prevent both their expansion and any accidental contact with Concordat vessels. Kadar laughed bitterly. Your blockade failed about 300 years ago. We dismantled the last automated Sentinel when we expanded to Alpha Centauri. Impossible, whispered Vrel. Those systems were built to last millennia. Perhaps against a peaceful species, countered Kadar. But when unknown alien technology appears in your solar system, you don't just accept its presence. You reverse engineer it. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The quarantine hadn't contained humanity. It had challenged them. Admiral, interrupted Lieutenant Razik. Captain Dravek reports the civilian evacuation is 30% complete, but Scourge reinforcements have arrived in system. Kadar studied the tactical display. They're committing significant resources to this battle, more than we've seen since Mars. He turned to the aliens. Ambassador, I need to know, why is this station so important to them? Vrel looked uncertain. It's a diplomatic outpost. There's nothing particularly... The repository, interrupted Pizan. When the other delegates stared at him in shock, the ancient archivist continued defiantly. We cannot afford secrets now, Admiral. This station houses the Concordat Repository, a database containing the complete scientific, cultural, and biological records of all 19 member species. Kadar's expression darkened. That's what they're after. Genetic templates for new forms of biological warfare. He turned to his officers. Change of plans. We hold this position at all costs. Nothing gets to that station. Admiral, protested Vrel. Your vessels are already taking heavy damage. The Concordat has no military to send as reinforcement. Then it's fortunate you have humanity on your side. Kadar's smile was grim. Lieutenant Razik, send the signal. Protocol Thermopylae. Razik's hands hesitated over her console. Sir, the nearest reinforcements are 3 days out. Then we hold for 3 days. The Admiral's voice left no room for argument. And contact Earth Command. Tell them we've made first contact with a galactic civilization. He glanced at the alien delegation. It seems isolation is no longer an option for either of us. Captain Dravek's fighter screamed through the void, leading 2 Scourge vessels away from a civilian transport. Her ship's systems were flashing warnings, shields. At 18%, weapons overheating, hull integrity compromised along the port nacelle. Phoenix leader to Dauntless, she transmitted, requesting support at Sector 47. The response came through garbled with static. Negative, Phoenix leader. All support craft committed elsewhere. You're on your own. Dravek muttered a creative obscenity as she executed a maneuver that strained both her fighter and her augmented physiology. The nearest Scourge vessel overshot her position, and she seized the opportunity to target its vulnerable propulsion system. Her targeting computer locked on, but before she could fire, her console erupted in sparks. Direct hit. The fighter spun wildly, control surfaces barely responding. Mayday! Mayday! Phoenix leader is hit. Systems failing. Her transmission cut off as the fighter's communication array failed. Dravek fought the controls, trying to stabilize enough for emergency protocols to engage. Through her viewport, she watched with grim satisfaction as the civilian transport she'd been protecting disappeared into FTL. At least they made it out. The pursuing Scourge vessel loomed in her view, charging. Weapons for a killing blow. Dravek closed her eyes, ready for the end. But the expected blast never came. Instead, her tactical display, what remained of it, showed new signatures. Small, agile craft, unlike anything in the Earth Defense Force. Alien vessels were engaging. The Scourge. The command deck of Elysium Station had transformed from a celebration hall into a desperate evacuation center. Praetorian Guard Captain Nemov Vex, one of the few Concordat citizens with actual combat training, directed frightened diplomats toward the remaining shuttles. Priority to the species representatives and repository custodians, he ordered, his metallic exoskeleton enhancing his diminutive gratin physiology. All others proceed to secondary evacuation points. A tremor shook the station as another energy blast slipped through the weakening shields. The artificial gravity fluctuated momentarily, sending several dignitaries floating before the system compensated. Captain Vex called a technician. We have an incoming transmission from the human vessel. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Kadar's stern face. Elysium Station, our scans indicate your shields will fail within 20 minutes. We're dispatching boarding teams to assist with evacuation and secure the repository. Vex bristled at the presumption, but knew they had no choice. Understood, Admiral. We'll direct your teams to Docking Bay 12. It's nearest to the repository core. After the transmission ended, an aide approached Vex nervously. Sir, should we really allow these humans access to our most sacred data? The Founders quarantined them for a reason. Vex watched through the viewport as a human shuttle fought its way through Scourge vessels, taking hits that would have destroyed Concordat craft. The Founders aren't here, he said finally, and the humans are. Sometimes survival requires uncomfortable alliances. Major Ryoko Ishida checked her tactical armor one last time as the EDF dropship approached Elysium Station. 15 elite soldiers stood ready behind her, faces hidden behind polarized helmets. Remember, she addressed her team, this is a rescue operation first, retrieval second. The aliens are friendlies. Treat them with respect. If we encounter Scourge boarding parties, standard containment protocols apply. What about the repository, Major? asked Sergeant Nkosi. Those are the Admiral's priority orders, Ishida nodded. Team Bravo will secure it with me. Alpha Team handles evacuation assistance. She pulled up the station schematics that had been, hastily transmitted. The central core contains data storage beyond anything we've developed. We'll need to download what we can and rig the rest for emergency destruction if the station falls. The dropship shuddered as it passed through the station's failing shields. 30 seconds to touchdown, announced the pilot. Be advised, we've got company. Scourge signatures approaching the same docking bay. Ishida drew her pulse rifle. Then we enter hot. Weapons-free, non-lethal protocols for any aliens except Scourge. The dropship's doors slid open to chaos. Scourge boarding craft had breached the adjacent docking bay, and their soldiers, twisted amalgamations of biological and mechanical components, were already engaging the station's meager security forces. Major Ishida leapt from the dropship, her armor's systems instantly analyzing the battlefield. Alpha Team, clear a path to evacuation zone. Bravo, on me! Her rifle spat coherent energy bolts as she charged forward, her team falling into perfect formation behind her. The Scourge soldiers turned to face this new threat, their asymmetrical bodies reconfiguring for combat. Beside them, Captain Vex and his Praetorian guards stared in astonishment as the humans engaged the Scourge with practiced precision. Their weapons, tactics, and coordination spoke of years of refined combat experience. The repository is 2 levels down, Vex called to Ishida during a brief lull. We can guide you there. Ishida nodded, her helmet retracting to reveal her face, a calculated gesture of trust. Lead the way, Captain. My team will cover you. In the depths of the station, the repository core hummed with energy. Circular walls lined with crystalline data matrices contained the accumulated knowledge of 19 species across 12,000 years of civilization. Archivist Pizen had returned from the Dauntless, insisting that he alone understood the indexing systems well enough to facilitate a rapid data transfer. His ancient exoskeleton whirred as he connected interfaces to the terminals. Hurry, urged Major Ishida, stationed at the entrance with her team. Scourge forces are converging on this level. This cannot be rushed, Pizen replied calmly. We're talking about transferring yottabytes of information through compatible systems that were never designed to communicate. Captain Vex positioned his guards around the perimeter. How much of it can you save? Perhaps 10%, admitted Pizen. I'm prioritizing biological and technological data. Cultural records will largely be lost. Ishida's comm unit crackled. Major, Scourge forces have breached the upper levels. Alpha Team is surrounded. Civilian casualties reported. Before she could respond, the station shuddered violently. Emergency lighting activated as primary systems failed. What was that? Demanded Vex. Ishida checked her tactical display. They've targeted the station's power core. We have maybe 30 minutes before catastrophic failure. Pizen's mechanical appendages worked faster. Not enough time. Not nearly enough. He paused, then disconnected from the main terminal. There's another way. The repository has an emergency protocol, a complete data package compressed into quantum storage devices. He moved to a recessed panel and pressed his identification against it. The wall slid open, revealing 9 small crystalline cubes. The seeds, whispered Vex in awe. I thought they were theoretical. Very real, corrected Pizen, carefully extracting the cubes. Each contains the complete repository, but they require tremendous energy to access. They were designed as a last resort if the Concordat fell. He handed the cubes to Ishida. Take these to Earth. Keep them safe. One day, when you have the technology, you'll be able to restore what we've built. The sound of weapons fire grew closer. Scourge forces were approaching the repository. Time to go, ordered Ishida, securing the cubes in her tactical pack. Captain, Vex, get your people to the evacuation point. We'll hold them off as long as we can. As the station began to break apart around them, humans and aliens fought side by side, united against extinction. 3 days later, the battle for Elysium Station had become legend. Admiral Kadar stood on the observation deck of the Dauntless, surveying what remained of the Concordate's once majestic diplomatic outpost. Nearly 70% of the station had been destroyed, its elegant spires reduced to twisted metal drifting in the void. But the core remained intact, a testament to human determination and alien ingenuity. Behind him, Ambassador Vrel approached cautiously. "Admiral, the Emergency Council session has convened. They're ready for you." Kadar nodded, straightening his battle-worn uniform. The last 72 hours had aged him visibly, deep lines etched around his eyes, new gray in his close-cropped hair. Earth's reinforcements had arrived just hours ago, driving off the remaining Scourge forces, but the victory had come at tremendous cost. "How many representatives managed to escape?" he asked as they walked. 14 of the 19 Council species," Vrel replied somberly. "We lost contact with the Zolot and Haraxian delegations when their evacuation ships were destroyed. The others—" Her voice trailed off. "We'll find them," Kadar promised, though both knew it was likely hollow hope. They entered a makeshift council chamber aboard the Dauntless. Representatives from the surviving Concordate species sat in a semicircle, their diverse physiologies a striking tableau against the utilitarian human vessel. At the center, High Counselor Kavdrel rose to his full height. "Admiral Osei Kadar, of Earth," he began formally, "the Galactic Concordate extends its profound gratitude for your intervention. Without your forces, we would have been annihilated." Kadar inclined his head in acknowledgement. "The Scourge are humanity's enemy as well. We've been fighting them alone for 17 years. "No longer alone," declared Kavdrel. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history. The quarantine protocol was a mistake, one we nearly paid for with our extinction." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled representatives. "The Concordate has existed for 5 centuries," continued Kavdrel, "maintaining peace through diplomacy and shared knowledge. But we grew complacent. We forgot the universe contains threats that cannot be reasoned with." "The Scourge don't want dialogue," agreed Kadar. "They want biomass and technology to incorporate into their collective. Every species they encounter becomes raw material for their evolution." Ixil of the Mithridian collective leaned forward, her feathered crest expanded in concern. "Our preliminary analysis of the battle data is disturbing. The Scourge adapted to your weapons within hours. Their newer vessels showed resistance to your energy weapons." "They always adapt," Kadar confirmed grimly. "It's why we constantly develop new armaments and tactics." "A perpetual arms race," mused Archivist Pzen. "One that the Concordate is woefully unprepared to join." An uncomfortable silence settled over the chamber. "Then, perhaps," suggested Ambassador Vrel, "it's time for the Concordate to change." She stood, addressing her fellow representatives. "For centuries, we've prided ourselves on being a peaceful coalition. We believed warfare was behind us. But peace isn't the natural state of the universe. It must be defended." She turned to Kadar. "Admiral, what does Earth propose?" Kadar activated a holographic display at the center of the chamber. It showed a strategic map of known space, the Concordat territories in blue, Earth's much smaller sphere of influence in green, and confirmed Scourge activity in pulsing red. "An alliance," he said simply. "Earth provides military protection and combat training. The Concordate provides resources, technology exchange, and safe harbor for our vessels. Together, we establish a defensive perimeter along these coordinates." He highlighted a sweeping arc that encompassed both territories. Captain Dravek, newly promoted after her heroics during the evacuation, stepped forward. Her arm was in a regenerative cast, and a fresh scar ran along her jawline, souvenirs from her damaged fighter's crash landing on the station. The Scourge retreat was tactical, not strategic, she explained. Our intelligence suggests they'll return with an adapted fleet within months. Next time, they'll be better prepared for human resistance. And what of the repository? Asked one of the alien delegates. The seeds? Safe, assured Major Ishida from her position by the door. Our scientists are already designing containment facilities for them on Earth. High Counselor Cav Drell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep consideration in his species. What you propose isn't merely an alliance, Admiral. It's a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization. The alternative, Kadar replied evenly, is extinction. The chamber erupted in passionate debate, some representatives embracing the human proposal, others resisting the militarization of their peaceful coalition. Through it all, Kadar stood silent, waiting. Finally, Cav Drell raised his hands for silence. We require time to deliberate. This decision cannot be rushed. With respect, Counselor, interrupted Captain Dravek, the Scourge won't give you time. They're regrouping even now. Ambassador Vrel stepped to the center of the chamber. Then, perhaps we should put it to an immediate vote, not as the full Concordat, but as the survivors of Elysium. Enough authority rests in this room to form a provisional alliance until the full council can convene. One by one, the representatives indicated their positions. The vote wasn't unanimous, but the majority was clear. As the session concluded, Admiral Kadar found himself standing alone with Ambassador Vrel at the viewport, watching repair crews working on the remains of Elysium Station. Your people are rebuilding already, noted Vrel. Most species would still be in mourning. Humanity has had practice recovering from disaster, Kadar replied. It's shaped our evolution. The quarantine records called you dangerous, said Vrel quietly. Now I understand why. Not because you're violent, many species have aggressive tendencies, but because you never stop. You never accept defeat. Kadar watched as an Earth vessel towed a massive piece of station debris clear of the reconstruction zone. Do you regret the alliance already, Ambassador? No, Vrel said, surprising him with her certainty. I'm grateful for it. The celebration that began at Elysium was for 500 years of peace. But peace preserved through ignorance and isolation isn't truly peace. It's just delayed conflict. Beyond the viewport, the first framework of a new structure began to take shape where Elysium had stood, a joint effort of human engineering and alien architecture. Besides, added Vrel, with what Kadar recognized as a smile, despite her alien features, I think our species might have more in common than the founders realized. 1 year later, the newly christened Bulwark Station hummed with activity. Where Elysium's graceful spires had once symbolized peaceful diplomacy, Bulwark's reinforced superstructure and defensive arrays made its purpose clear. This was the forward command center for the Concordat Earth Alliance. Fleet Commander Mariska Dravek, her previous rank insufficient for her new responsibilities, strode through the central promenade. The station represented a remarkable fusion of technologies, human military pragmatism blended with Concordat aesthetic sensibilities and engineering brilliance. Most striking was the diversity. Human officers worked alongside Concordat species at every level. What had begun as an emergency alliance had evolved into something unprecedented, a true integration of civilizations. Dravek entered the command center, where holographic displays tracked vessel movements across 3 sectors of space. At the center stood Admiral Kadar, deep in conversation with High Counselor Cav Drell. Fleet Commander on deck, announced the duty officer. Kadar waved away the formality. Mariska, perfect timing. The Sentinel array just detected unusual activity. In the Proxima sector. Dravek studied the tactical display. Scourge? Unknown, replied Cav Drell. The energy signatures don't match Scourge technology. We're dispatching a joint reconnaissance team. I want you leading it, Kadar added. The Dauntless 2 is prepped and waiting. Dravek raised an eyebrow. Sir, with respect, my place is coordinating the defensive fleet. The frontline patrols can manage without you for a week, Kadar finished. This mission is too important for anyone else. If it's not the Scourge, we need to know who else is out there. As Dravek departed to prepare for the mission, she passed the station's memorial wall. Thousands of names, human and alien alike, commemorated those lost at Elysium. Her fingers traced one particular name, Lieutenant Ekwa, her wingman who'd sacrificed himself to save a transport full of civilians. Commander, called a voice behind her. She turned to find Captain Nemov Vex approaching, his exoskeleton upgraded with human-designed combat enhancements. Captain Vex? She greeted him. Ready for another adventure? The Praetorian Guards are honored to join your mission, he replied formally, then added with unexpected humor, though I still don't understand why humans insist on personally leading dangerous expeditions when remote options exist. Dravek smiled. Some things have to be seen with your own eyes, Captain. Deep within the secure laboratories of Earth's Lunar Science Complex, Major Ryoko Ishida, now Director of Xenotechnology, observed the experiment through polarized glass. Before her, one of the repository seeds floated in a containment field, emitting a soft blue light. Power levels stable, reported Dr. Elvis Renault, her chief scientist. Quantum resonance achieving synchronization. For months, Earth's best minds had worked alongside concordant scientists to unlock the seed's secrets. The crystalline cubes contained the complete knowledge of 19 civilizations, but accessing that data had proven challenging. Human power generation technology couldn't supply the massive energy requirements without destabilizing the quantum matrix until now. Initiating final sequence, announced Renault. The laboratory hummed as newly designed resonators, hybrid technology combining human innovation with concordant theoretical science, aligned with the seed's internal structure. Archivist Pizen observed. From a nearby console, his ancient exoskeleton now integrated with human interface technology. Remarkable, he murmured. Your scientists accomplished in months what we believed would take decades. Necessity drives innovation, replied Ishida. The Scourge won't give us decades. The seed's glow intensified. Behind her, Zen approached. You know, the ancient archivist said thoughtfully, when the founders quarantined humanity, they feared exactly this moment. What moment? Asked Ishida, not taking her eyes off the data stream. The moment when human ingenuity would be applied to concordant knowledge. Pizen's voice carried no accusation, only wonder. They never imagined it as salvation. The Dauntless 2 dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima sector, its advanced stealth systems immediately engaging. Fleet Commander Dravek studied the sensor readings with growing concern. Confirmed, reported her tactical officer. Those aren't Scourge energy signatures. Configuration unknown. The main view screen displayed a massive fleet, at least 200. Vessels of varying sizes, all constructed with a distinctive geometric precision. They were assembled around what appeared to be a natural wormhole, their weapons trained outward in defensive formation. Life signs? Asked Dravek. Inconclusive, replied the sensor operator. But there's something strange. The ships appear to be partially organic. Captain Vex stepped forward, his exoskeleton whirring softly. May I? At Dravek's nod, he interfaced directly with the sensor array, his specialized equipment processing the data differently. Not Scourge, he confirmed, but similar technological principles, perhaps related. Related how? Dravek pressed. The Scourge consume and adapt, explained Vex. These entities appear to create and evolve, different philosophy, similar technological base. The communications officer interrupted urgently. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the unknown fleet." Dravek straightened her uniform. On screen. The view screen shifted to reveal a being unlike any they'd encountered. It appeared to be composed of interlocking geometric patterns that constantly shifted and reformed, with points of light that might have been eyes. "Humans of Earth," the entity spoke, its voice translated through the ship's systems. "We have awaited your emergence." Dravek exchanged glances with her officers before responding. "This is Fleet Commander Mariska Dravek of the Concordat Earth Alliance. Identify yourself." "We are the architects," replied the entity. "Progenitors of what you call the Scourge." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. "You created the Scourge?" Dravek finally managed. "Not intentionally," the geometric being responded. "They were once like us, builders, creators. But they encountered something in the void between galaxies. It changed them, corrupted their purpose from creation to consumption. And you've been fighting them ever since," guessed Vex. "For millennia," confirmed the architect. "We've watched your struggle with interest, humans. You fight as we do, adaptively, persistently. The Concordat chose isolation. You chose confrontation. It is why we have revealed ourselves now." Dravek leaned forward. "What do you want from us?" "The Scourge are building something at the galaxy's edge, a dimensional rift large enough to bring through what corrupted them. If they succeed, this galaxy will fall. We propose an alliance. Our technology combined with your tactical innovation and the Concordat's knowledge." "Why not approach the Concordat directly?" asked Vex. The architect's geometric form pulsed. "We tried, centuries ago. They deemed us too similar to the Scourge and refused contact. Their fear of the unknown blinded them to potential allies." Dravek's tactical mind raced with possibilities. If the architects were telling the truth, this could change everything. If they were lying, the consequences could be catastrophic. "We'll need to consult with Alliance Command," she said carefully. "Naturally," replied the architect. "But do not delay too long. The rift nears completion. The Scourge's attacks on your territories were not random. They sought components for their device." As the transmission ended, Dravek turned to her crew. "Prepare a complete data package for Bulwark Station. Priority transmission." She paused, then added, "And ready all weapon systems, just in case." 3 weeks later, representatives of 3 civilizations gathered in Bulwark Station's Grand Assembly Chamber. Admiral Kadar and High Counselor Cav Drell sat at one end of a triangular table. Across from them, Fleet Commander Dravek and Captain Vex represented the reconnaissance team. At the third position, a delegation of architects hovered, their geometric forms casting prismatic light patterns across the chamber. The central holographic display showed a massive structure at the edge of the galaxy, the Scourge's dimensional rift. "Our simulations confirm the architect's assessment," reported Director Ishida from a secondary display. "If that rift opens, the energy release alone will sterilize 12 star systems. Whatever comes through will be worse," finished the lead architect, designated Prisma. "What corrupted the Scourge exists beyond conventional physics. It consumes reality itself." Kadar studied the tactical projections. "Even with our combined forces, a direct assault on the Rift facility would result in catastrophic casualties." "Perhaps there's another approach," suggested Ambassador Vrel, who had joined the session alongside Archivist Pizen. "The repository data indicates the Scourge have a hierarchical consciousness. If we could target their command nodes specifically—" "Impossible to identify from external scans," countered Prisma. "They shield their command structures too effectively." A. Tense silence fell over the assembly. "What about internal identification?" asked Dravek suddenly. All eyes turned to her. "Explain," prompted Kadar. "A small strike team, Dravek continued, her plan forming as she spoke. Infiltrate the Rift facility, locate the command nodes from within, then transmit targeting data to the combined fleet. Suicide mission, stated Cav Drell bluntly. High risk, corrected Dravek, but not impossible. My fighter squadron proved we can penetrate their defenses if we move fast enough. I volunteer, declared Captain Vex unexpectedly. When others started to object, he continued. My exoskeleton's neural interface can process Scourge communication, signals. I could potentially locate their command nodes faster than any scan. Pzen's mechanical appendages shifted thoughtfully. The repository contains detailed files on Scourge biology and technology. With human adaptive programming, we could create a targeted virus, something that could disrupt their collective consciousness temporarily. It wouldn't stop them, but it might create enough confusion for a strike team to penetrate their defenses. Prisma's geometric form pulsed with what might have been approval. The architects will provide stealth technology that can mask your approach. We have studied the Scourge longer than any civilization. We know their blind spots. For hours, the unlikely allies refined their desperate plan. A joint strike force would approach the Rift facility using architect stealth technology. Meanwhile, the combined fleets of humanity, the Concordat and the Architects, would position themselves for a massive coordinated attack, not on the facility itself, but on the command nodes that would be identified by the infiltration team. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Kadar pulled Fleet Commander Dravek aside. You realize you're volunteering for what might be a one-way mission? Dravek nodded solemnly. Someone has to lead the strike team, sir. And I know Scourge tactics better than anyone. Except perhaps Captain Vex, noted Kadar with a hint of a smile. We make a good team, admitted Dravek. Human offensive strategy, Concordat defensive technology. The Praetorian Guards have proven themselves capable warriors this past year. Kadar placed a hand on her shoulder. When I disobeyed orders to follow the Scourge to Elysium Station, I never imagined it would lead to this. 3 civilizations, uniting against extinction. From celebration to terror to hope, reflected Dravek. Quite the journey, sir. Indeed. Kadar straightened. The strike team departs in 24 hours. Make your preparations, Commander. The Scourge Rift facility loomed before them, a massive structure built from cannibalized starships, asteroids, and organic matter. Fleet Commander Dravek, Captain Vex, and 6 elite specialists from both human and Concordat forces huddled in the tiny stealth vessel provided by the Architects. Approaching insertion point, announced Dravek, her voice steady despite the tremendous risk. Final equipment check. Each member of the strike team wore specialized armor, a hybrid of human tactical gear and Concordat defensive technology, further enhanced with Architect stealth components. They carried weapons designed specifically for this mission, capable of disrupting Scourge neural networks without triggering the regenerative response that made conventional weapons so ineffective. Biodisruptors charged, reported Major Ishida, who had insisted on joining the mission despite her scientific leadership role. Quantum charges primed. Vex interfaced with the vessel's sensors. I'm detecting minimal security at our entry point. The virus must be working. Their coordination is degrading. Perfect timing, said Dravek. The fleet will begin their diversionary attack in exactly 8 minutes. We need to be inside and transmitting targeting data before they arrive. The small vessel docked silently against the massive facility, magnetic clamps engaging without alerting Scourge sensors. As the airlock cycled, Dravek turned to her team. We all know the stakes. If that rift opens, everything ends. Not just our civilizations, but potentially all life in the galaxy. We're not fighting for land or resources or even survival anymore. We're fighting for existence itself, Vex's exoskeleton whirred as he checked his weapons. Rather philosophical for a human pre-battle speech, Commander, Dravek smiled behind her helmet. I've been spending too much time with ambassadors. The airlock opened to reveal the nightmarish interior of the Scourge facility. organic matter, fused with mechanical components in endless pulsating corridors. The team moved swiftly, following Vex's sensor readings toward the facility's central chamber. They encountered scattered resistance, confused Scourge drones that fell quickly to their specialized weapons. The virus was clearly working, disrupting the collective consciousness that made the Scourge so formidable. "Central chamber ahead," whispered Vex. "Energy readings are off the scale." They emerged onto a walkway overlooking a massive spherical chamber. At its center hung the partially constructed rift, a tear in reality that pulsed with dark, unnatural energy. Around it, thousands of Scourge worked tirelessly, their bodies morphing and adapting as needed to continue the construction. But most disturbing were the three massive, pulsating organic structures suspended from the chamber's ceiling, each one larger than a shuttlecraft, connected to the rift by streams of energy. "The command nodes," breathed Ishida. "They're directly linked to the rift." Vex's sensors confirmed it. "Those are the targets. If we destroy them, the entire project collapses." Dravek activated her tactical display. "Transmitting targeting coordinates to the fleet now." She checked the mission timer. 2 minutes until they arrive. "We need to disable the facility's outer defenses." "The control nexus is there." Vex indicated a platform across the chamber. "But we'll be exposed crossing to it." "Then we'll have to be quick," said Dravek. "Major Ishida, set the quantum charges on the walkways. The rest of you covering. Fire on my mark." The team moved with practiced precision, each member understanding their role perfectly. As Dravek and Vex sprinted toward the control nexus, the others created a diversion, drawing Scourge attention away from the critical mission. The control nexus was guarded by advanced Scourge forms, more intelligent than the drones they'd encountered earlier. As Dravek engaged them with her biodisruptor, Vex interfaced directly with the facility's systems. "Defense grid identified," he reported. "Beginning shutdown sequence." Around them, the facility shuddered as distant explosions marked the arrival of the Allied fleet. The diversionary attack had begun. "Hurry!" urged Dravek, holding off another wave of Scourge attackers. "Defense grid disabled," confirmed Vex. "The fleet has their shot." Across the chamber, one of the team members screamed as Scourge attackers overwhelmed their position. Ishida's voice came through the comm, tight with urgency. "Charges set. 30 seconds to detonation." "Fall back to the extraction point," ordered Dravek. As they retreated, the quantum charges detonated, severing the walkways and sending dozens of Scourge plummeting into the depths of the facility. The team fought their way back toward their vessel, but the resistance grew heavier with each passing second. "They're adapting to the virus," warned Vex. "Collective consciousness reestablishing." Outside, the combined fleet hammered the facility with unprecedented firepower, specifically targeting the command nodes identified by the strike team. But the Scourge defenses were formidable, even compromised. A massive explosion rocked the facility, throwing the team to the ground. Through a breach in the hull, Dravek glimpsed the space battle raging outside. Hundreds of ships engaged in desperate combat, energy weapons flashing against the backdrop of stars. "Commander," called Ishida urgently, "the rift is destabilizing. The attack on the command nodes is working, but not fast enough." Dravek studied her tactical display. The rift's energy signature was fluctuating wildly, a chain reaction that would eventually collapse it, but not before it partially opened. Something was already starting to come through, something massive and utterly alien. "We need a catalyst," realized Vex. "Something to accelerate the destabilization." Dravek looked at her remaining quantum charges, then at the extraction vessel, waiting at the airlock. A decision crystallized in her mind. "Get everyone to the extraction point," she ordered. "I'm going back to the central chamber." "Commander, no!" protested Ishida. "That's an order, Major." Dravek's voice left no room for argument. "The rest of you withdraw immediately. Captain Vex, make sure they reach the extraction point." Vex hesitated, his exoskeleton's sensors already calculating what Dravek intended. "Commander, Mariska, There's only a 12% chance you'll succeed. Better odds than we had at Elysium, she replied with grim humor. Now go. That's an order. As the team reluctantly withdrew, Dravek fought her way back toward the central chamber, the remaining quantum charges secured to her tactical harness. The facility was coming apart around her, sections exposed to vacuum, others crushed by structural failures. She reached the edge of the central chamber and beheld chaos. 2 of the command nodes had been destroyed by the fleet's attack, but the third remained intact, pouring energy into the rift. And through the tear in reality, something was emerging, a darkness beyond darkness, a void that consumed light itself. Dravek activated her comm. Admiral Kadar, this is Fleet Commander Dravek. The rift is partially open. Something's coming through. We see it, came Kadar's grim reply. Fleet taking heavy losses. We can't destroy the last command node from outside. You won't have to, said Dravek, checking the timer on her quantum charges. Just be ready to withdraw when I give the signal. She took a running start and leapt across the broken walkway, using her armor's enhanced capabilities to propel herself toward the final command node. Scourge defenders fired at her, energy blasts scorching her armor, but she pushed forward, focused entirely on her target. Landing on the organic platform supporting the command node, Dravek placed her remaining charges at critical junctions where energy flowed from the node to the rift. The Scourge converged on her position, sensing the threat. All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance, she transmitted. Detonation in 15 seconds. As Scourge attackers reached her position, Dravek stood facing the rift. Through the tear, she caught a glimpse of what lay beyond. A realm of unnatural geometries and impossible physics, a place where reality itself came undone. And facing it, she felt no fear, only certainty. The quantum charges detonated simultaneously, rupturing the command node and sending cascading energy surges through the rift structure. The tear in reality began to collapse in on itself, energy backflowing into the facility. In her final moment, Fleet Commander Mariska Dravek witnessed something remarkable. The entity from beyond, partially emerged into our universe, was pulled back through the collapsing rift, its vast, unknowable form compressed and destroyed by the very portal it had tried to use. The combined fleet watched from a safe distance as the Scourge facility imploded, the energy of the collapsing rift creating a miniature nova that briefly outshone all nearby stars. On the bridge of the Dauntless II, now commanded by Major Ishida, a solemn silence prevailed. Captain Vex stood at the viewport, his exoskeleton's normal operational sounds muted in respect. She knew, he said quietly. From the moment we identified the command nodes, she knew someone would have to stay behind. Admiral Kadar's holographic form nodded gravely. Fleet Commander Dravek understood sacrifice. She learned it at Elysium, watching civilians evacuate while she held the line. He paused. What matters now is that we honor that sacrifice by building something worthy of it. The Scourge will return, noted High Counselor Kavdrel from another holographic projection. They always do. And we'll be waiting, replied the architect Prisma, its geometric form pulsing with determined light. Not as separate civilizations, but as a united front. 3 months later, the official dedication of the rebuilt Elysium Bulwark Station took place. No longer purely military or purely diplomatic, the massive structure represented a new paradigm in galactic civilization, strength through diversity, security through cooperation. At its heart stood a memorial chamber where representatives from Earth, the Concordat, and the architects gathered to honor those lost. Admiral Kadar unveiled a simple monument, a holographic display showing 3 intertwined symbols, Earth's planetary emblem, the Concordat's unity circle, and the architect's geometric sigil. Below it, an inscription read, "From celebration turned to terror, humanity answered the call, and in answering, found they were not alone." Ambassador Vrel stood beside Captain Vex, both watching as visitors from dozens of worlds gathered around the memorial. The founders feared humanity's warlike nature, she mused. They never imagined it would be your salvation, and ours. Not our nature, corrected Vex. Our choice. Humans could have remained isolated, fighting the scourge alone. Instead, they chose to extend their protection to others. From the observation deck above, Archivist Pazen watched the gathering with his ancient eyes. The repository seeds were now safely distributed across multiple worlds, their knowledge gradually being integrated into a new, combined database that all three civilizations could access. The celebration that had been interrupted at the original Elysium Station continued now, not as a self-congratulatory recognition of peace maintained through isolation, but as a genuine commitment to a harder, more valuable peace, one forged through cooperation, understanding, and shared sacrifice. Beyond the station, joint patrol vessels, human, concordate, and architect technologies seamlessly integrated, stood sentinel against the darkness between stars. And on distant Earth, training academies welcomed cadets from 19 species, all learning to defend not just their own worlds, but all worlds. The terror had not ended. The scourge would return, perhaps with new adaptations, new strategies. Other threats might emerge from the vast unknown of space, but never again would any civilization face such threats alone. Humanity had answered the call, and in doing so had called others to stand with them. Low, intensified patterns of light, flowing across its crystalline facets. Suddenly, the containment field filled with holographic data, billions of information packets streaming through the laboratory's systems. Download commencing, confirmed Renault excitedly. Estimated completion time, 72 hours. Pazen's mechanical appendages worked rapidly over the interface. It's working perfectly. The biological database alone will revolutionize medicine for both our peoples. Ishida studied the streaming data with satisfaction. And the weapons technology? Accessible once we decrypt the military archives, assured Pazen. Though I must note, the Concordate's offensive capabilities were limited. We preferred defensive technologies. Understandable, Ishida said diplomatically, but against the scourge the best defense is overwhelming offense. An alert sounded from her communication device. Incoming transmission from Bulwark Station, Director. Priority Alpha. Ishida stepped away from the experiment. Put it through. Admiral Kadar's holographic form appeared before her. Director Ishida, how's the seed project progressing? Breakthrough achieved, sir. Data extraction has begun. Excellent timing, said Kadar, his expression grave. Fleet Commander Dravek is investigating unusual activity in the Proxima sector. Early reports suggest it's not Scourge. Ishida frowned. A new player? Unknown. But we need those repository archives more than ever. Specifically, any information on species beyond concordate space. Understood, sir. I'll prioritize xenobiological identification patterns and first contact protocols. After the transmission ended, Ishida returned to the observation window.